So, Medea, fairly well known, one of probably the greatest of Euripides' plays. It was the last play before everything went to pot in Greece. The Peloponnesian War started about 2 or 3 months after this play. It was the end, if you will, of the golden age of Greek theatre. And it has an important place being where it is at, partly because of the central figure. We need to take off our modern hair and hats and what have you these days, or contemporary ones, to look at what was going on then. At the time, Greece was maybe a dozen different city-states, maybe more. And they all saw themselves as being very, very different to one another. They didn't see themselves as being anything akin. The Corinthians, who would have been about 25, 30 miles, maybe 50, I could be wrong, but who were comparatively close to Athens, did not see themselves as Athenian. Some of them would have traveled to see the festivals and what have you, but for the most part, they didn't see themselves really Athenian. Did they speak the same language? Practically. Spartans similarly. The Peloponnesian War, when it kicked off, it was a six-front war for Athens. They were fighting 6 different nations or city-states. The concept of Greece, as we know it, is a comparatively modern one, dating really to somewhere around the 13th century in terms of the Anglosphere. We didn't really consider Greece to be a unified idea until about then, as we start to coalesce into different ideas of nations. But in terms of this being a time when the Peloponnesian War is on the verge of exploding and blowing up, this was a chaotic time to be putting this play forward. This is a play that, if you will, and this is in some ways partly wearing these modern clothes, these contemporary clothes. This is a play, as we would understand it, about racism and misogyny in so many ways. And Medea is the personification of both. Let's go all the way back. So, have any of you seen the magnificent Ray Harryhausen crafted work that is Jason and the Argonauts? Presumably some of you have. If you haven't, pause this, find it, watch it, then come back, because it's a wonderful film. But that is in Greek myth where Medea shows up. Jason is sent off by Peleus, who is the king of Corinth at the time, on a great quest, which is to collect the golden fleece, or to steal the golden fleece from Kolchis. Now, Kolchis, it is worthwhile knowing, is a long way away. Kolchis is at that time on the other side, the far side of the Black Sea, which means you're sailing across the Aegean Sea, sailing up the way through what's the name of the place? Through the Bosphorus, which is where we find Istanbul, as we call it today. But at that time, I don't even know if it was Byzantium was built, but that's where it was. And then across the Black Sea to what is now today's Georgia. And Marty, this is where you come in. Marty's one of the people who gave me a lot of insight on this from a travel trip he made. This is not Georgia with Atlanta and Savannah. This is Georgia with people who are called Saakashvili and things like that. Anyway, there they go to the house of Aeetes, who is the holder or the keeper or the owner of the Golden Fleece. Let's sidetrack for a moment, because the Golden Fleece is really interesting. The Golden Fleece is supposedly the fleece of a ram that had wings that was sacrificed to one of the gods by a Greek guy, and everybody got jealous of him. So he and his fleece ran away to Kolchis, to Aeetes, and that's where he settled down. Aeetes being the king. Kolchis was always sort of famously a very rich nation at that time. Now, knowing a little bit about the area, not so much Georgia so much as Turkey, which is now across the Bosphorus, is basically the home of Istanbul. Istanbul is on the 2 sides of the Bosphorus, and there is what is known as the Golden Horn there. It is a little sort of inlet, for want of a better term, which is where a number of rivers sort of wash from the Greek side, the European side, into that strait between the Black Sea and the Aegean, the Mediterranean. And it was said historically that so wealthy was the area that at a certain point, and we're going thousands of years ago, don't try to do it these days, you'll pick up something different. If you were to drop a sheep's fleece, a wool fleece, into the Golden Horn, as you lifted it up, so much material was coming down in the silt from these rivers that it would glow like it was golden because it was filled with gold dust. I think we may have an actual real life possibility of what that golden fleece was. Back to Colchis. Colchis is the home of Aeetes. His daughter, Medea. When Jason comes with the open hand, but the knife behind his back. He plans to steal the fleece and run away. Medea falls for him and follows him and is supposed to be a witch. She is a follower of Hecate, or Hecate, depending on, I think I always go with Hecate, who is basically a witching goddess. She it is who invokes the powers to help Jason escape with the fleece. She, of course, cannot stay there, and she follows back Jason all the way back to Corinth, where they get married for their love and have children. Again, not going into the story itself. We're looking at the background of Medea. There's a number of things going on here that are really intriguing. Firstly, she's a foreigner. I mean, if we're looking at the guys who are 25 miles up the road in Athens as being different to us, she is a whole world away. She's like two different languages between, whichever way you go, you have to cross through two different languages that are distinctly different before you can get to what is now Georgia from Greece. It is a very, very alien world. She is not seen as one of them. And if you look at that time, even before the Peloponnesian War, and you can see there was tensions building up towards it, at that time, Medea is an outsider and a woman. As a woman, she is legally a non-entity. Marriages in Greece at that time were basically political alliance building. You married outside your tribe, not because you love that woman, but because she's a good match. Your passions, your love, your emotions, you kept for your side dish, if you will. If you wanted to love somebody, that wasn't marriage was not an impediment. So we get all these different sort of romances, if you will, that happen between elder Greek statesmen and servants or slaves, or in a lot of cases the younger males among them. You know, the whole legacy of the idea that Socrates was corrupting the youth is a thing that the British put on that story to a great degree. So Jason married this woman because he loved her. This goes against the Greek idea. So Medea is in doubly bad position. She's a woman and she's married for love. That's kind of a bit, what's the word I'm looking for? It's a bit passé. You don't do that. Good people don't marry for love. That's a bad choice. So it makes perfect sense that he, in the Greeks of that minds of that time, that he would go and he would, you know, ditch the romance for a good political match when he marries, or when he goes to marry the new king of Corinth, Creon's daughter. Medea has much more going on than that, though. She has given up everything in order to move to Corinth. I don't want to call it Greece because it's not Greece. She has betrayed her father, her family, and her nation. She has committed treason on all accounts in order to follow this passion. And this passion is being cast aside, to her mind, in order to facilitate a more proper marriage. Being a foreigner and being a woman, being a foreigner, those children of Jason's don't really have any legal standing. That is another thing to be noted about the Greece of that day. Legal standing was only something that true-born Greeks could have, or people who had been, I suppose, naturalized as Greek. So that's another thing that we really need to pay attention to, is that theoretically, and I'm not saying this as a get out for Jason, theoretically, in the minds of the Greeks who watched this the first time, Jason was very justified. He was doing them a service, according to the Greeks of the time. Of course, at the time and now are different worlds. I'm pushing up against the time that I was hoping to set aside. I'm going on over 10 minutes. So I'm going to cut it down because I want to keep these to 10 minutes. Nice little short bites that you can take as you're brushing your teeth for too long in the morning or whatever you're doing. I do want to point to two more things. Firstly, if you were able to read the ancient Greek or heard the ancient Greek of it, there's a preponderance of fascinating sounds in it. Yes, her words, not all her words, but a lot of her speeches, particularly when she's reproaching Jason, she uses a lot of S sounds. So, for example, one of them would, and I don't speak ancient Greek, so the pronunciation is not going to be great. And no, I had to read this. I didn't spot this from reading in ancient Greek because I can't. She says, "Esosa se esosa hos isasi hosoi." All those S sounds. She's portrayed in so many ways as a witch. She is a witch. We are told she is a witch in the play, but she's portrayed almost snake-like. So she is very much snaky, witchy, all these kind of things. In a modern context, I would have that being spat. Her sibilance showing her disdain for what he is now doing, Jason's now doing. The other thing, this is the Marty bit, is she's a hero. Today, even today, we will still sometimes see her as being maybe misguided because she kills her kids. If you go to Georgia today, she is seen and is fated as a Greek hero or heroine there. She is seen very highly and considered to be an important and powerful character. The Georgians have taken her on as a hero. I suppose history is written, we say, by the winners, but it is written by those who find themselves in elsewhere. If the Irish had been wiped out in the 1980s because of the IRA, I suppose all these people who are portrayed by the Irish as heroes now would be just painted as cowboy villains in 200 or 300 years' time. But all these characters from my history, they're all heroes. Similarly so in Georgia. The Georgians today see Medea of Colchis as a hero. That's it for now. I'm going to come back and do this for about 10 minutes. We went up to about 15 nearly every week for the foreseeable little while. Let me see what I've got planned up next. I think it might be Oedipus, is it? Or oh no, let me see. I've written all these things down because I won't remember them if I don't. What did I say next for this? I was thinking Oedipus, and I'm going to look at Oedipus in the light of Hamlet, or Hamlet in the light of Oedipus. None of these things are going to be synopses of the stories. We're going to be riffing on bits and pieces. I want to look at Agamemnon and Ajax and Hippolytus and all these other old plays that I don't know how many of you have had the chance to see. I love these old Greek plays. They're like an Ibsen of times gone past to me.